Good evening, everybody. How are you? We hope that you're well. Carte Blanche recently published a video on YouTube uh, which was entitled something like The ANC, a House Divided. The title, of course, coming from Christ's words about a house divided on itself, and referring obviously to the to the present mortal combat between the two primary, not the two only, but the two principal, factions within the ANC, namely the faction that goes by the name Radical Economic Transformation, the RET faction, and then the moderate faction of Cyril Ramaphosa, particularly, but not only. The first faction, of course, being represented most notably by Ace Magashule and Jacob Zuma. And it is true that the ANC is a house divided, but I'd like to caution Suidlanders of all South Africans. Suidlanders, because Suidlanders must be the people of the greatest wisdom and common sense in this country. We must be, we have to be, within our limitations, obviously. To caution Suidlanders against being lulled into a false sense of security by the apparent implications of the ANC fighting itself to the death. That is to say that Suidlanders may, like anybody else, begin to believe that it's a good thing if the ANC kills itself, and that it's a good thing for the failure of the National Democratic Revolution, that it's a good thing for the welfare of ourselves and our families. I put it to you, Suidlanders, that in fact it is a very bad thing, because the National Democratic Revolution is not being hampered or hindered or suffocated or ruined or destroyed in this process of mortal combat of the House divided, the African National Congress. What these two parties are doing, as we've seen recently, is that they're using the National Democratic Revolution as a kind of an enticement for support. So what they're each doing, what they're both doing, is advancing their causes, the cause of their faction, by pushing the National Democratic Revolution. Cyril Ramaphosa's success in land, or let's just call it expropriation, generally, property, land, etc., expropriation without compensation, secures his future, secures his position and secures his future. It is in his best interests to satisfy the perceptions of the, so to speak, bourgeoisie, the middle portion, the middle class of the ANC, the proletariat, the peasantry. It's in his best interest to get them to believe that everything that he's doing is for them. It secures his position. It secures greater number of votes for him at the ANC's elective conference. And of course, the same can be said for the radical economic transformation faction. Of course, they are more, or ostensibly, apparently more radical, more socialist, more leftist, more overtly Marxist, more akin to the economic freedom fighters. That's all true. So you might say that, well, Cyril Ramaphosa can never keep up with them. Yeah, but talk is cheap when you're out of power. So that faction is finding it very easy to be very, very radical and to use the National Democratic Revolution as an instrument of credibility. So both teams, both factions are using their pursuit of the National Democratic Revolution, or in Cyril Ramaphosa's case, because he's in power, his implementation, his manifestation of the National Democratic Revolution through such policies, by way of example such as expropriation without compensation, as an instrument of credibility. So both of them have a motive to pursue it more frantically than if they weren't locked in mortal combat. I think I've made my point, and there's not much else to say. I can conclude by reiterating the premise that we Suidlanders should not be lulled into a false sense of security, and we of all people must continue to be the organization of the greatest common sense and the greatest wisdom concerning the truth of what is the new South Africa Rainbow Nation, of any organization in South Africa, as we have been for going on for decades. There's no organization on the right or the left that can remotely compete with us concerning the accuracy, without conceit, without, as Mr. Miller, I've told you that Mr. Miller has said this to me in the past. He said, Simon, I was trained in military intelligence. I should be able to do some forecasting by virtue of my training. And he said, secondly, I pray that the Holy Spirit guides me, and he does guide me. And thirdly, I'm guided by the prophecies of Sina van Rensburg, so I cannot take the credit. Nevertheless, no organization in South Africa can remotely compare to Suidlanders for accuracy in analyzing what is cooking in the country, and moreover in forecasting what is liable to transpire. There you go. Thanks very much for listening. We'll speak soon. Good night, and God bless you. Bye-bye.